It is 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Thank you so much for joining us on the Fox Local Stream. I'm Marla Tejas. Another big shakeup in the Trump administration. We're talking about it right now. Pam Bondi fired. Today, President Trump fired Attorney General Bondi. On True Social, he thanked her for her service and called her a, quote, great American patriot. He added this. We'll throw this up there. Pam did a tremendous job overseeing a massive crackdown in crime across our country, with murders plummeting to their lowest levels since 1900. We love Pam, and she will be transitioning to a much needed and important new job in the private sector to be announced at a date in the near future. Now, her ouster comes 14 months into the president's second term and just a few weeks after he fired Kristi Noem from Homeland Security. Luis Alvarado is a political strategist and consultant and the former deputy press secretary for the California Republican Party. Thank you so much for jumping on the Fox Local Stream with us this afternoon. I want to get your reaction first and foremost. Are you surprised?
No, of course not. And thanks for inviting me. 420 days, that's how long she lasted. And we saw the same pattern when he fired Kristi Noem, that, there was a lot of praising. And I think for Noem, there was a new job that was created with a new department that never existed before. And likewise here, what's surprising is that President Trump is saying, she will be assigned to a private job and gave no other explanation. And I'm curious how the president is able to appoint people to private jobs when technically he's not allowed to. Just want to get that out of my system. But most importantly, the only thing we can tell is that he was very displeased with the way she handled the Epstein files, first and foremost. And second, he had complained to her that, she needed to get on it and get all these enemies of Trump convicted. And she did went ahead and put some cases together, and they went to the grand jury, and all those cases were dismissed with great prejudice, which tells you that it was a complete fabrication, and she was only doing it because Donald Trump was asking her to do it. And historically, that job is supposed to be independent of the president or any other branch of power. And that job is supposed to be the pure representative of the people of the country. Yep. And certainly we didn't have that with her. I think she was 90% on board with Donald Trump, and it's that 10% where she probably didn't deliver that got her fired.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, because Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, his personal criminal defense lawyer, he now heads the AG position. This is on an interim basis, but he is a top contender to get this job permanently. Lee Zeldin, also who runs the EPA. Given the close relationship and that Blanche could arguably be called even more of a loyalist to President Trump, will things change, or will it still be sort of this weaponization, as you're referring to there, of the Justice Department?
One of the things that was very clear and that includes comments from people inside the administration that I know, is that when it came to selecting members of the cabinet, qualifications were not at the top of the list of the priorities. It was loyalty to the president, loyalty to Donald Trump, loyalty that if things were going to get a little bit tough, and I think Donald Trump learned this from the first term that he served, where most of the people in the cabinet were put there by the Republican Party, operatives of the Republican Party. This time he didn't make that mistake. He handpicked the people, he interviewed them, and he wanted to make sure that they were going to be loyal to him and the brand. And we see that in the Department of Defense/War. We see that in the other cabinet members that are basically there to not even listen to Congress. And now we're watching how the courts are rising to kind of put some boundaries to what the cabinet and the administration is doing. And Pam Bondi certainly did not gain the support of the people or the establishment as someone who is going to be there to represent the Constitution. And Donald Trump, certainly with those words that he's putting in the Truth Social, telling the word that she didn't qualify for what I needed. I'm going to give her a soft landing, right? There is no ill intent on his side. I'm going to take care of her. And that's probably because Pam Bondi has, if she was to be disgruntled, I'm sure she has a lot of things she could talk to the press about that would not make this administration happy.
Yeah, and she put out a statement not long ago. She says that she's thrilled about her undisclosed role in the private sector. She also said that she will, quote, continue fighting for the administration despite her ouster. So it's more of, at least out front publicly, they are copacetic, if you will. And thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. President. I'll continue to fight for you in the private sector. We'll see if that actually plays out. Reaction has been swift, of course, from top California Democrats who you would expect to hear from, including Representative Robert Garcia out of Long Beach, Ro Khanna out of Fremont, two lawmakers who put immense legislative pressure on Bondi to release the Epstein files, accused her of overseeing they call a cover-up. Ro Khanna came out today and said, quote, even though she was fired, she must still answer to Congress about the remaining documents, why we have no new prosecutions, and why she participated in a cover-up. She's expected, or was supposed to, appear to testify before the House Oversight Committee on April 14th. I believe that's the date. Do you expect her to still do so?
Well, I'm sure she's talking to her lawyers about what parameters she has with regards to responding to Congress now that she's no longer a member of the cabinet. She can probably go in and claim the fifth and say, I'm not going to incriminate myself, and then just leave it at that, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what would happen. But the reality is now all eyes are on who's coming next and what kind of credentials are they going to bring to the table? Is it going to be truly somebody who's going to be responsive to the White House, somebody who's going to be able to persecute those people that Donald Trump once persecuted? Enemies of Donald Trump. We saw that Comey and other members of the past administration had earned the crossfires of the president, and he expected a resolution when it comes to the prosecution. So the question is, who's coming next, and what kind of job are they going to do? Well, I think the thing that hurt her the most is when she testified in Congress the first time. She made the infamous statement now that where the Dow market's at 50,000, right? Demonstrating that she was parroting the talking points of the White House and not talking about specifics or not answering the questions of the elected officials in the House.
Talking about who will step into this permanently, I mentioned Lee Zeldin. He's also known as a loyal ally and a fighter. He has successfully executed his agenda as the administrator of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Do you have any insight on who Trump is going to go with, Zeldin, Blanche, or is there another name that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, that's the thing about Donald Trump. I think he, there is sometimes it's very hard to read the tea leaves only because there is no tea leaves. And people may say that these candidates may be being considered, but the reality is in Donald Trump's world, it can go from hour to hour, day to day, what his mood is and who he feels is going to be able to serve the administration best. And he's listening to a lot of people. I'm sure he's making some phone calls. He's trying to get the right people. I'm sure he's talking to the inner circle, the chief of staff, Marco Rubio. Those are the people that ultimately he's going to listen to. And then that also includes people in his family, his daughter, Ivanka and Jared, people that are working on behalf of the administration, although they don't have an official title. We see him flying on many missions on behalf of the president. And those are the people that he listens to the most. So I think all eyes are going to be on who it's going to be. And it's going to be interesting to see when they go and get confirmation in the House or the Senate, to see what kind of questioning there's going to be. Certainly when the Homeland Security was fired, Kristi Noem, they picked a senator because they needed the Senate to feel comfortable with the next person, and it wasn't as sharp edges as they had before. So I expect something similar to happen where they're going to pick somebody who knows how to navigate the Senate to have a easy confirmation. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of betting
Yeah.
from us politicals and trying to figure out who that person's going to be.
Well, that's one of the pros, if you will, of Lee Zeldin. He's already gone through the vetting process and was confirmed as the head of the EPA. So we'll see if that plays into this and who Trump picks in the end. I want to get your thoughts, though, as a Republican. A recent Fox News poll came out that showed that Donald Trump's approval rating was, I believe, at an all-time low at 59%. Are you pleased with how he has handled his second term thus far?
Well, I got to make you a quick clarification. I was a 40-year Republican. I'm now a no party preference independent.
Okay.
So,
I'm
still a
so
very
sorry.
conservative guy.
Okay, I really appreciate the clarification. I'm so sorry about that. So yes, no party preference, which for essentially an independent.
Right.
Okay.
So, I still have many friends who are Republicans, elected officials, and I still have many clients that are Republicans. So, as a conservative and a former lifelong Republican, I'll tell you that I'm not surprised. I think Donald Trump, at some point in this administration, knew that he was going to push this bold agenda that he had, that he discussed when he took the oath of office. As things progressed, he knew that it was an all-in situation, and an all-in meant that all the risk was going to be there. I think he wanted to get his agenda done, knowing that there was going to be the danger he's going to suffer in the polls. I don't think he had an inclination knowing that he was going to suffer that much. I think he truly believed that the polling was rigged, as he said in the past. The media was rigged, and that's why he wasn't getting a fair shake. But the reality is that we're also watching all these races, and especially elections in the last few weeks and months, where Democrats are actually overcoming Republican districts, and that has every Republican committee, the NRCC for the Congress, the NRS, the SA for the Senate, the RGA for the governors, all the committees, the GOP, even though they have more money than the Democrats, they don't have the message. They don't have the argument. The reasons that Donald Trump got elected, there was like 5 points that were in that list, and 4 of those points he has not delivered on, or he has made things worse. And I think independents gave Donald Trump and the Republicans an opportunity to lead again when they voted for him, especially many in the Latino community voted for him, believing that his economic policies were going to remain the same. And now there's great dissatisfaction. There's polls that say he's between 38% low, and some that say he's 33% low. And that's why you have a record number of Republican elected officials in Congress that are deciding to retire because they don't see a future where they're going to be able to govern. They see how Democrats don't have a say in how things are happening in Congress, and they don't want to live through that. So they're just deciding to retire. And certainly there's going to be a blue wave that's going to overtake the House, and Republicans are admitting to it. I think the Senate is the question. That's where all the interest is right now, because everything that I've seen says that it's still Republican controlled. But lightning can strike, and who knows? Texas may turn blue, and other states may surprise with a Democrat overtaking a Republican state. So, there is a lot of fear, and that's why you see the president push the SAFE Act, pushing election reform. We just saw that he signed another executive order trying to control the elections, when it's very clear that elections are managed by the states, and the executive office, the White House, has nothing to do or nothing to say with regards to how they control the voting.
Which is why that's being challenged. And let me just juxtaposition your comments to here in California right now, leading the polls regularly are 2 Republicans. And I know that can go back and forth with maybe Katie Porter came out and she was, leading, and next was Republican Steve Hilton. But nonetheless, the point being that there's so much chatter among the Democratic Party in California about we're splitting the vote so much, we're going to eat ourselves in the June primary, and then could there be a situation where there would be 2 Republicans on the ballot come November in the most royal blue state?
Yes, absolutely. That's a possibility. California is one of those very few states where we call it a jungle primary, which basically means the top 2 people, regardless of which party they belong to, if the top 2 vote getters get to move on to the general election. And right now, when you have so many Democrats that are fighting for that job, and there was only 2 leading Republicans. Then you're going to have these 2 Republicans at the top of the food chain, and we haven't seen anybody still spend that much money. I think Tom Steyer is the only one who's spending a lot of money.
Well, makes sense. He's the billionaire.
Yeah, he's the multi-billionaire, and he's not. His argument is not affecting the polling so far. I think I saw a poll this morning where Eric Swalwell, is now in first place with 17% at the top. So, I question that poll. There's going to be a lot of internal polling and a lot of jockeying for position to try to push somebody out or to try to elevate their name. We saw Sheriff Bianco with the scandal with the ballots and the fight with Ron Bonta at the state trying to control an investigation from 2020. There's going to be a lot of jockeying, a lot of strategy, and a lot of chess playing on how to elevate your name ID and how to get your message across. Right. And it's going to be very difficult for Democrats to do it at this time.
My last question is just sort of the turnover in this second term of the Trump administration. He had high turnover during term number 1. And this time around, he does as well with, at this point, as of late 2025, reportedly 55,000 employees were specifically classified as fired as of late 2025. Is your take on that? In that, is this common? Because I'm seeing that former President Biden, he had record low turnover, one of the lowest in the 21st century.
Well, the firing has to do when they close the Department of Education. The firing has to do when they streamline FEMA, or where they unite 2 agencies into one. CDC took a big hit, if I remember correctly. So it was weaning out the federal government. Even the Pentagon suffered a lot of losses. So many Democrats claim that they took out established leaders because they wanted to control the agencies in a manner that has never been controlled before, and that's why you see many federal agents or people who live in Virginia and Maryland who are very dissatisfied with the president, who usually have given Republicans their vote. It looks like this time they are not supportive of the Republicans, and that's because a lot of agencies have been damaged with all these layoffs. You may recall Doge came into town, and
that played a big role.
Out, the FAT, and the FAT turned out to be agencies that actually were helping. There's a lot of people who were talking to me yesterday about FEMA. They took a lot of the money from FEMA to pay the TSA agents that technically haven't, Congress hasn't approved their pay, but he had to borrow from somewhere. And the question is, if there's a natural disaster, is FEMA going to be able to respond to the needs of the people? And those are the risks that this administration is taking.
Right.
People are paying attention, and a lot of people are not happy, and that's why those polls are all the way down to the bottom. I think it's one of the lowest polls that he's ever had in his life.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation, almost 20 minutes long. He is Luis Alvarado, political strategist, easy for me to say, and consultant, lifelong Republican until, when did you switch to NPP, no party preference?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay. Well, thank you for that correction. I apologize. I'll get it right next time, and I do hope you'll join me again.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Okay. Very good. Have a great day.
Big fan.
I'm sorry?
Big fan of you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. That's very nice
I
of you to
love your
say.
style. Great reporter.
Okay, I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much.